Why you can't seem to leave. Unmasking the Narcissist's invisible psychological traps. Have you ever felt completely exhausted, drained to your very core, yet completely incapable of walking away from the person who is causing that exact exhaustion? Have you ever wondered why you stay in a dynamic that your logical mind clearly knows is hurting you, while your heart and your body feel inexplicably tethered to the very source of your pain? You watch yourself make excuses for their behavior, you apologize when you haven't done anything wrong, and you wonder why you can't just pack up and walk out the door like everyone on the outside tells you to do. If you have been wrestling with this agonizing internal tug-of-war, I want you to take a deep breath and hear this. That confusion is not accidental. You are not weak, you are not broken, and you are certainly not losing your mind. What you are experiencing is the direct result of a highly specific, invisible psychological architecture designed to keep you exactly where you are. To understand why leaving feels like trying to tear away a part of your own soul, we have to look at the very foundation of how these relationships are built. They do not begin with cruelty, control, or chaos. If they did, you would have walked away on day one. Instead, they begin with what psychologists call the idealization or love bombing phase. During this time, the other person morphs into the perfect mirror of your deepest desires. They listen to your vulnerabilities, they match your energy, and they make you feel seen in a way you have perhaps never felt seen before. Your brain is flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, the neurochemicals responsible for bonding, trust, and pleasure. You aren't just falling in love. Your nervous system is biologically anchoring itself to this person as your ultimate source of safety and joy. This is the first psychological trap, the creation of a baseline reality that is beautiful, but ultimately unsustainable. When the mask eventually begins to slip, and the devaluation phase begins, the shift is so jarring that your brain simply cannot process it as reality. This is where we encounter the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance. As experts like Dr. Ramani Durvasula frequently explain, cognitive dissonance is the intense psychological distress that occurs when you hold two completely contradictory beliefs at the same time. You are holding the belief that this person is my soulmate and my safe place, while simultaneously confronting the reality that this person is lying to me, disrespecting me, and destroying my peace. Because the human brain cannot tolerate that level of internal conflict, it desperately searches for a way to resolve it. And for a highly empathetic person, the easiest way to resolve that conflict is to turn the blame inward. You tell yourself, if I just communicate better, if I am just a little more patient, if I can just fix this one flaw in myself, we can get back to that beautiful beginning. You begin to gaslight yourself, actively participating in the maintenance of the illusion because accepting the truth feels like a psychological death. In the middle of this confusion, it is crucial to understand what is actually happening on the other side of the equation. When we examine narcissistic traits in an educational, non-judgmental way, we begin to see a pattern of profound internal fragility masquerading as grandiosity and control. Psychologists like Darren McGee emphasize that individuals with these deeply ingrained traits often suffer from an arrested development in their emotional processing. They carry a vast, hidden reservoir of shame and a fundamental inability to self-regulate their own self-esteem. They do not have an internal anchor. Therefore, they must rely entirely on external sources, often their partners, to manage their emotional equilibrium. When they feel out of control, they project that chaos onto you. When they feel inadequate, they diminish you so they can feel superior. They are not necessarily sitting in a dark room plotting your demise. They are functioning on a primitive survival script. They trap you because they subconsciously believe that if you leave, they will be left to face their own internal void, which to them feels like annihilation. Your presence, your reactions, and even your pain become the psychological stabilizing forces for their fragile identity. This brings us to the most powerful and invisible trap of all, intermittent reinforcement, and the resulting trauma bond. Dr. David Hawkins and other trauma specialists often compare this dynamic to a slot machine. If a slot machine paid out every single time, you would eventually get bored. If it never paid out, you would walk away. But because it pays out unpredictably, just often enough to keep hope alive, it becomes highly addictive. In your relationship, the payout is the sudden return of the person you fell in love with. After days of silent treatment, subtle put-downs, or explosive rage, they will suddenly offer you a crumb of warmth, a genuine-sounding apology, or a nostalgic evening that feels like the old days. That tiny moment of relief causes a massive spike of dopamine in your brain, chemically binding you to the person hurting you. You aren't staying because you enjoy the pain. You are staying because your body is biologically addicted to the relief that only they can provide. Leaving doesn't just feel like a breakup. It feels like physiological withdrawal. The toll this takes on your emotional well-being is catastrophic. Your nervous system is pushed into a state of chronic hypervigilance. You are constantly walking on eggshells, scanning their facial expressions, and monitoring their tone of voice to predict the next storm. This chronic stress floods your body with cortisol, leading to physical exhaustion, brain fog, and a complete erosion of your self-trust. You lose touch with your own intuition because your survival has depended entirely on anticipating their needs and suppressing your own reality. You feel entirely isolated, not only because they may have alienated you from your support system, but because it is incredibly difficult to explain this invisible dynamic to anyone who hasn't lived through it. So, how do you begin to dismantle these invisible traps and step back into your own light? The first step is what psychologists call radical acceptance. You must begin to accept that the potential you are waiting for is an illusion, and the pattern you are living in is the reality. You have to stop looking at the person they were in the first few months and start observing the person they have consistently been for the last few years. Second, you must re-engage your logical brain to fight the cognitive dissonance. Start documenting your reality. Keep a private journal where you write down the facts of what happened during an argument, not your interpretation, but the raw data of what was said and done. When the narcissist tries to rewrite history, or when your own brain tries to minimize the abuse to protect your attachment, you can read those pages and anchor yourself back into the objective truth. Third, you must focus on nervous system regulation. Before you can ever expect your mind to feel strong enough to leave, your body needs to learn that it can feel safe without them. Practice grounding techniques, deep somatic breathing, and slowly rebuilding a life outside of their shadow. Reconnect with old friends, return to hobbies you abandoned, and begin to pour the immense empathy and love you have been giving to them back into yourself. Finally, implement the strategy of emotional detachment. If you are not in a position to physically leave right away, you must learn to leave emotionally. This is often called the gray rock method. You become as uninteresting, unreactive, and neutral as a gray rock. You stop defending yourself, you stop explaining your feelings, and you stop feeding them the emotional reactions they rely on to regulate their self-esteem. As you slowly withdraw your emotional energy, the trauma bond begins to weaken, and the fog in your mind begins to clear. Healing from this dynamic is not a sprint, it is a slow, courageous walk back to yourself. It requires profound self-compassion to forgive yourself for the time you stayed, realizing that you stayed because you have a beautiful, hopeful, and forgiving heart. Those are not weaknesses. They were simply exploited by someone who did not know how to hold them safely. If this message resonated with you, and if it helped you put words to a pain that has felt invisible for far too long, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and like this video so we can continue to navigate this journey together. Please share this with someone who might be silently questioning their own sanity right now. And leave a comment below sharing one step you are taking today to reclaim your peace. Your story is powerful, and sharing it might be the exact lifeline someone else needs to read today. As you move forward, keep reminding yourself that the confusion is finally lifting. You are seeing the reality for what it is, and that is the most beautiful beginning of all. Clarity is the first form of freedom. You are not alone.